Last night, Barcelona absolutely battered Newcastle United in the Champions League. 7-2. It was brutal from Barcelona. They took Newcastle's biggest strength as a team and turned it into their biggest weakness. It was seriously impressive. It was all about spacing, counter movements, runners and individual quality. So the theme of this game, particularly in the second half, was Newcastle trying to apply pressure relatively high up the pitch and at times squeezing and jumping into a man-to-man press. So Newcastle start off in a 4-3-3 like this, but what we often see is Gordon and Elanga almost just about forming a front two, and Trippier sort of ready to jump from right back all the way up to Cancelo. It's in that moment that this is now turned man-to-man. In midfield we can see that it's man-to-man, and of course also against the back line. What was so impressive about this Barcelona performance though was the way that they exploited it. Newcastle are difficult to play against. Newcastle are physical, they are intense, they can run for 90 minutes quite comfortably. So what Barcelona had to do was something technical based, and the first thing that they did, and that we mentioned earlier, was the spacing. Barcelona made the spaces really big, and that is going to do all the work setting up everything that we will talk about in just a moment. So what Barcelona do is they spread their players out. Their midfielders come deeper towards the ball, and perhaps their forwards push a little bit higher. And what this does is it starts to create these big spaces to just start to form in between the lines. Now, initially, no one is going to occupy those spaces, like you can see here. There's just a big open space in the middle of the pitch with no one standing there. But Barcelona are initially leaving this space open on purpose. So that is the first thing that they are doing. They are creating big spaces. They are taking these Newcastle players into man-to-man situations and basically dragging them away from each other. Next up, the counter movements, and this is why Barcelona have initially left that large space, because it's the space that they then eventually want to arrive into, but of course not all at the same time. What we see from a lot of teams when they are trying to keep possession and look after the ball is lots of players will come towards the ball at the same time, drop into the same space with the idea of getting more options for the player on the ball. Close proximity play, allowing you to play in those zones. But Barcelona did something very different. We very rarely in this game saw two players making the same run towards the ball. Almost throughout the entire match, the Barcelona players were making opposite runs, either moving clockwise or counterclockwise, so they're moving sort of in the same direction but into different zones. So for example, let's say Tonali is on Lopez here and Ramsey is on Pedri. If they both move in the same direction, so Pedri moves counterclockwise this way, Ramsey follows him, and Lopez does the same, counterclockwise movement, and Tonali follows him. We can see now that both players have made the same sort of movement, but they've drawn the Newcastle players into very different positions. And when we start tying this in with deeper players as well, let's imagine this is Pedri and Ramsey here, and they both make the same movement. Let's say Lewandowski this time goes clockwise, and Pedri does the same, and the men following them do the same thing. Well now, through movement patterns, Jacob Ramsey has ended up as a centre-back. So this is why this is such an effective way of playing against man-to-man pressure, because you really test how far these man-to-man players are willing to go. Are they really willing to leave their own position just to follow you? And that's something that Barcelona did fantastically. Just look at Rafinha here, off the ball. So many different runs, always in a different direction to his teammates around him. But he's just constantly asking those questions of the Newcastle defenders, asking whether or not they are willing to follow them. So this was something that Barcelona did incredibly. You can see this from one of the goals. The players in the middle move in that counterclockwise way. They move away from each other, and it opens up this big space in the middle of the park, simply because the Newcastle defenders are almost disorientated at this point, being moved all over the shop. That allows Barcelona to punch the ball through the lines, and then we see that runner off the ball with the counter movement. One player comes towards the ball, the other player goes away from the ball, and that's how Barcelona attack in behind. So that goal was all about the spacing and then the counter movements, but of course it was also only possible because of the runners off the ball. This player only ends up in this position because he was willing to make the run off the ball. That's how he attacked the space. And that is one of the most important things to do when you play against man-to-man pressure. You see, when we talk about man-to-man pressure, and when I say it, I know what you immediately think of. You immediately think of a team trying to squeeze high. Squeezing high means running forwards towards the opposition's goal. So we associate man-to-man pressure with this moment. The goalkeeper's got the ball, and as a defensive team, you go man-to-man. You think all of your players are stepping forward. They're all stepping in a forward direction towards players. A great way to go against this, though, is to ask your players to run the other way. So of course it's that counter movement again, for example Lopez coming towards the ball, but it's that other movement past which can be so effective against man-to-man pressure, because these players sort of lose focus. Initially, they are focused on the ball. That's where Ramsey is looking in this situation. He's facing Garcia in goal. If Pedri can make that run off of him and then someone else plays the pass, that's how you can escape this man-to-man pressure. And again, that's what we saw here. That runner off the ball, making the run off the back of the defender. Another one here, runner off the back of the defender, and he eventually picks up possession. Again, here, you can see the man that is meant to be following him, but he runs off the ball, off the back of the defender, and again finds himself in space. So Barcelona are initially being picked up man-to-man by a strong, intense Newcastle side, but Barcelona are just ripping them to shreds with their movement off the ball. And then the final thing that I am always keen to point out anytime you have a man-to-man pressing game is the importance of individual quality, because ultimately that can be what this comes down to. We see all over the pitch, all over here, 10 players versus 10 players, 10 different situations of 1v1s. There's a 1v1 here, there's a 1v1 there. You get the picture. There's lots of 1v1s on the pitch. But what if you can win your 1 versus 1? What's the effect of that? Let's say Pedri receives the ball in this position. If he's too skillful for Ramsey and beats him, what happens next? For the Newcastle defenders, they've suddenly got a decision to make. Do they stay on their man-to-man player, but that leaves the player on the ball more time and more space to run into? Or does someone else close him down, but then they're leaving their man and that man then becomes free? So I think individual quality is huge in games like this. You need players that can problem solve, that can take the ball under pressure in a tight moment and manipulate the opposition. You need someone like Lamine Yamal here in this little bit of space up against Thiaw, where the quality is just too good. It's man-to-man. Thiaw is the defender responsible for marking him, for trying to tackle him in this moment. Yamal is just way too good for him. The touch is just too clever. He springs it away from the defender, and now he's got that space, and now Newcastle look in trouble because everyone's picking up a player each. There's one player free on the ball because the defender has been taken out of the game. And of course, when it comes to Barcelona, and we're talking about their midfield and also their front line, talking about individual quality, you know, they've got it. They have absolutely got it. It's the little details of the things that they do. Earlier we were talking about runners. Rafinha, this run is fantastic. You think Lewis Hall falling over is unlucky, it's misfortune, but actually it's from Rafinha being clever. Rafinha changes direction several times. Hall is forced to do the same, and that's why Hall slips. It's not just an unfortunate slip. Rafinha actually does incredibly well to force him into that compromised sort of situation. And just the pure quality of this Barcelona team when they get going on the attack is fantastic. And, you know, I thought in the first half, they showed real promise against the man-to-man press. They just didn't quite connect with the technical quality on the ball all the time. They didn't always pick the right pass. In the second half, they were sharper with their possession play. Their first touch was better. Their passing selections were better, timing of release and things like that. And they just absolutely blitzed one of the best man-to-man pressing sides anywhere in Europe. Newcastle had a bad night as well. They did make some errors at the back. A couple of the goals are poor. A couple of the set pieces are poor as well. You don't expect that from Newcastle. But in open play, Barcelona were just too good. And I think it was fascinating to see such a physical, well-drilled, intense, athletic side picked apart with technical quality, but intelligence, making space, attacking that space, counter movements, runners off the ball, and of course that pure individual quality. It was fascinating to watch. If Barcelona continue to play like that, I sort of hope they go really far in this competition, because it was a breath of fresh air to see a team approach a man-to-man battle in that way. As someone who watches so much Premier League football, I'm used to sort of seeing a long ball approach or a physical dueling style to try and beat it. But to see the manipulation of space and attacking that space was great to see. And I'm hoping that Barcelona, as a result, can sort of progress through this tournament, because it was fun. It was nice to see a team approaching it in a different way. And we've seen similar from several European teams so far this week. It's been a really good watch, and high presses have really been hit hard. The man-to-man press has failed this midweek in the Champions League, and teams like Barcelona have really thrived. I thought they were absolutely brilliant, but I want to hear from you guys in the comments. What was so impressive about this Barcelona performance? What impressed you the most? Did you pick up on that issue with the man-to-man pressing and the way that Barcelona exploited it? And what do you think it means for football if we start to see more of this, more regularly in big European games, the man-to-man press being dismantled? Does it eventually die out and we see a different style come in? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. But apart from that, we are now finished for today. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, please leave a like, subscribe, and get your notifications on. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.